Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of American-born Chinese. Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So obviously this does a lot to set the stage, mainly for Jin's life, and obviously we get a little bit here and there with Wei Chen. We know a little bit, obviously, from the beginning of him running away from who we later on find out is his dad. What's the character's name? Was it Wukong? It's kind of like a monkey emperor. I guess I'd assume, I don't know if he's supposed to be like the Jade Emperor or whether, because they're referencing like the Jade Emperor and the Bull Demon. So I'm curious, is his dad the Jade Emperor because of the staff, or is his dad just someone that inherit? I'm curious, is he like a long reigning Jade Emperor? Did he take up the mantle, or is he just someone that isn't the Jade Emperor? I'm curious how that all works out, because the name he's got, Wukong, I think it is like a character, because I know there's a video game coming out, or I don't even know if it's already come out or not, that's kind of based around that Monkey Emperor, Monkey King type of situation. I do know that that's kind of a part of I guess it's just kind of one of those Chinese, I think it's just born in based in Chinese mythology. But either way, Wei Chen ran away from their realm, which now it makes me wonder, is it like a space-time continuum thing of Wei Chen's actually been here in the human realm a lot long? Well, we don't know the differences of is their realm kind of a more realm of the gods and mythical creatures or whatever, or what their realm is versus this everyday normal day on Earth, what the differences between the realms are. But it seemed like Wei Chen has been here long enough to assimilate the human regular normal human life. So that's why I'm curious what his circumstances were. Has he actually been here a lot longer than we think? I guess he's kind of picked up enough on his own. It could easily be it might be a thing of these worlds are kind of mirrored to each other. So it's he's seen into this world, so he already has all the knowledge of this world. He's probably been studying and preparing to take a journey to this world for some time. So I just wasn't expecting him to be so immediately allocated, and just the fact is he was able to sign himself up at the school and everything. It just seems so interesting that you were able to kind of do all that. So you have to either someone's helping him in that regard, which could be Michelle Yeoh's character, because she does help him out at the end of the episode. So she might be the one that kind of set the pace for him, kind of helped him out. Maybe she's the one that kind of gave him the idea, maybe, because whatever journey he's on, I don't know if she's the one that kind of greenlit the journey for him, or whether it's just something he feels like he needs to do it on his own. But either way, so we have that side of things, but we also have, like I said, our introduction to Jin, who's trying to figure himself out. He's always been the kid that I think that kind of stands out, because it's from what we saw at the school, and maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, did seem like there was a lot of Asian kids at this school, which, I even had that, I've never been in that situation before, having been, because I've been to schools that are predominantly, maybe white and black over the years, so I've never been in a situation where I've been, one of the few kids, because, even when I was in high school, I think, off the top of my head, I can think of, 2 Asian kids. There was an Asian kid in my school who was I was a sophomore, he was a senior in high school, and then there was a girl who was a freshman who's half Japanese. I'm trying to even think, there's a girl named Miyuki I knew in middle school. So I like I said, I also just don't know that perspective of being the one, feeling like the odd duck out. And so Jin's whole thing is, I want to fit in. And I think it kind of speaks a little volumes of oh, hey, here's this, picture of hey, being the cool kid. He's a white kid, kind of a representation of the all-American kid wanting to fit in. And he has friends, but they're not really friends. They're very fair weather friends, because he has one friend, but which I love that his mom pronounces, and he's whoa, have you been calling him that the entire time? And she's yeah, but come on, you knew exactly what friend I was talking about. But he wants to fit in. He doesn't want to stand out, because he stood out for so long. Because for one, it's right, being Asian kids are, in his mind, it's it makes me stand out a lot. Plus, I'm also the weird Asian kid, because I'm a nerd. I'm into manga and comic books and superheroes and stuff like that. It's yeah. And that's what makes his friend stand out, because it's a whole thing of oh, him and his friend had a falling out because there was like a soccer practice thing that Jin went to, and his buddy showed up and kind of did like Naruto jutsu moves and stuff like that. Which, to be fair, it's like, right, it's like, oh, especially at a time where like high school, like everything matters to you, which obviously is not till you get older. You're like, high school doesn't mean jack shit. It doesn't, it doesn't define your entire life. It's like 4 years of your life, but so much of that is so like ethereal, it could easily fade away. Obviously there's people who latch onto it and it becomes like the most important thing in their life. But other people, it's just like, yeah, like it just kind of like, it was a moment in your life. It's just 4 years that kind of vanish in what is the grand scheme of your own life. So, but it's like, yeah, when you're that age, it feels like it's the most important thing to you. So you want to fit in. You don't want to feel like a weirdo and a loser. I get it, because I'm a weirdo and a loser. I'm literally Jin. Obviously, aside from not being, a Chinese kid, like with the exception of that, but I'm the weirdo, nerdy. Well, I was always that, and I even try to fit in. Like I swung the pendulum too hard in the other way to kind of cover up my nerdiness. As I've gotten older and become a little more comfortable with myself, which I still got a lot to do on that front, I've embraced my nerdiness a lot more. And so that's why I can really connect with the character of Jin, of like not feeling comfortable in your own skin. Also super not confident. Dude, I'm like, it's like this character, once again, like background circumstances being different. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of commonality between me and Jin's character in that regard, where I'm like, oh yeah, I could see a lot of me in that character. And I think that's the thing of like, yeah, just kind of part of the human experience of, yeah, we might be from different backgrounds, but we as humans, there's so many parallels and so much common ground that we have. It's kind of a perfect example of that, of like, yeah, like I said, you might not be able to resonate with the full experience of being, Chinese, but you can still resonate of like, oh yeah, like, his circumstances with his parents, or just wanting to fit in, and just, like high school, where you kind of like, hey, you leave behind your really good friends for people who aren't really good people. They're actually kind of douchebags, And especially like when he has to look after Wei Chin, and it's like, oh, why is that? And it's like, because you have so much in common. Even Jin's like, we do? It's like, yeah, I mean, he'll basically follow you all around. And I also love his teacher couldn't get none of their names right, because she was like, Jim, he's like, just kind of accepted it. But it's like the principal couldn't get your name right or Wei Chin's name right. But then also it's like, oh, he's in ESL, so obviously you're in English, he's in ESL, and also he's way ahead of you in math. That I love. Jin, I was like, why are you shitting on me? Like, you didn't even have to add that in there. You didn't have to comment on that. But yeah, you already feel like you're standing out a little too much, and you're just not the most confident person. Now you're also asked to look after the kid who kind of has like, Wei Chin like embraces who he is. He feels no embarrassment or shame, which Jin, it's kind of admires that, until it kind of blows back on him, and it's kind of embarrassing, because Wei Chin's the one that convinced him to go talk to Amelia and ask her out. But she's like, oh, we can hang out as friends, and it's just like, it's like, right, you're making me stick out more. It's kind of embarrassing. Like, I wanted to sit with my friends at lunch, but you made a spectacle in front of everyone, be like, yo, sit with me. Can you see me? But it's also like, we're in the same things. It's like, oh, there's this particular manga we like, but there's only like 3 volumes out in America. But he's like, oh yeah, like in China, there's like, only like 3 have come out in the US. So it could be, I wonder how that works in like China versus Japan in that regard, because obviously it takes a long time for stuff to get translated over to like English here. That applies with like video games, and like, I'm sure like video games and video games and like manga and stuff like that. But I'm like, how does that work with other countries? So like a manga, like, would it get like, how does that translation period, I mean, take even video games, like from translating from like Chinese to like Korean or Japanese, I mean, a Korean or a Chinese, like how long does that like transition? I've never actually wondered about that before. I'd assume it take with just about the same amount of time, but I've never given that much thought before. Either way, I'm going on these massive tangents, sorry. But I mean, I like that. I mean, because the reason why I'm doing that is because, like, it is just like, hey, this is about Jin. Like, the more mystical side of things is literally just the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode. It's very just kind of like a coming-of-age story. It's kind of what I think the crux of the story is going to be. But because, like, most of it is just Jin and his normal life and everything he's kind of going through, where he's, like, once again, feeling so lost and just feeling like, oh, once again, not the most confident person. Then there's also like that sitcom with Kiku Kwan, which I'm probably butchering his name. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that's the role he was playing because I've seen some of the promotional stuff, but he's not. I guess he's just his character's an actor in this world. Maybe there's going to be a little bit more to that. But that sitcom from the '90s, which I love, which is very poignant thing to have, where it's like, hey, this show is problematic. I even love the kids like at school were laughing, and one girl's like, hey, you shouldn't be laughing. It's like, yeah, it's problematic. It's like, which I think that's also a problem too, that you're like, oh, it's only problematic because we can't be laughing about this in front of the Asian kid. That's what it reads as, because it's like, oh, you're only like feeling like, oh, we shouldn't, it's problematic. But, and I love her being like, this is fine, right? It's like, the cringe. I was like, but it's that thing of just like, right, I can laugh at this. It's fine, right? He's like, because Jin doesn't want to stand out. He doesn't want to be that guy. He's like, yeah, sure, it's fine. He even watches it later on, and you're just like, oh, God, you're like, ugh. You're watching the show, and you're like, obviously it's an extreme, but even then I'm like, I don't watch enough sitcoms, and it's probably one of those things where it's like, my memory's terrible. I'm probably like, if I went back and watched a lot of stuff, I'd probably see a lot more of that than I'd even recognize, I know it's definitely had to have come, because I know there's been definitely had to be many examples of it. Like, there's a difference between stuff that does it because it's like, oh, you're trying to be as offensive as possible because it's like super dark humor, versus something where it's like, oh, this is supposed to be funny because we don't see anything wrong with it. It's just jokes, and I love how that does come back full circle for Jin. But it's like, yeah, he couldn't even watch it. He turned it off. It's like, yeah, that's the problem. He kind of gave people permission to be like, oh, it's fine. It's not problematic. Because that's a little bit of his dad in him too. Because his dad doesn't want to speak up and that ends up being a point of contention between him and his mom, where his mom is like telling her husband, like, hey, you need to speak up at work. But he's like, no, I'm going to get noticed by like being quiet. It's like, yeah, like I worked in this company for a long time, but I've always stayed the same level. And it's like, that's such a complicated thing, because I think it comes from the perspective of, she says that he used to be brave, but I guess something changed. And for him, it's like, you don't know what the work environment is like, because it is probably that thing of, he might be almost in a similar, like Jin and his dad might be mirror images of each other, just at different points in their life. His dad's in the working force and Jin's in high school, but it might be the thing of Jin's dad might not be at a company where there's like a lot of Asian people. But like I said, I think it's probably more so like no, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to potentially lose my job because I could end up getting fired for this. That's where the whole fried squid thing comes from, because Wei Chen was the one that told him, it's like, yeah, like fried squid is kind of like I guess almost like a Chinese colloquialism for basically getting fired. So he doesn't want to rock the boat and ask, but his wife is telling him to kind of be brave and ask for what you deserve. But it's like, you don't know what I kind of have to deal with, and like we don't know what his work environment is like. And it's like I want to keep my head low, I want to do my job, and then they'll notice me. But it's like, if they go so long without noticing you, that is a problem. But it's like, if you speak up and they fire you, so it's just it's a complicated thing. Once again, this is just me putting a lot of my own thoughts into it, because we haven't seen his workspace, so we don't know what the full circumstances are. But I feel like that would be one of the main reasons why he wouldn't kind of speak up at work, why he would say, keep your head low, and that's how you will kind of get noticed, because just do the work, and that's how you'll get promoted. But, and that's, like I said, it's because I'm sure, like, they're probably, like, pretty tight on cash and stuff like that, so... Because even Jin's mom kind of says this thing where he's like, oh, I want to go water skiing. She's like, oh, you tried skiing, you didn't like it. You fell and you cried. And he's like, no, water skiing. But she's like, we're not the water skiing family. And it's like, what does that even mean? It's like, well, about the money issue with their family. So it's a money thing of like, well, we don't have that luxury of like living it up like that. Like it might be a family thing of like, and and any family can suffer from the circumstances of just life being what it is, and just other things, contributing factors of, they could be a family that's kind of like just scraping by. They could be like living kind of almost basically paycheck to paycheck type of situation. So, but it also kind of feels like we're not this water skiing type of family, that it almost feels like that might be almost like we're Chinese. We're not, to me, it could be interpreted as like, that's kind of a white person thing to do, so that's not us. It could be interpreted that way, but it could just be like that's an American thing to do, which we are living in America, but we're not viewed in the same light as every other American. So that could also be a larger conversation there. So... then you also have Jin finding out about, well, he had an incident at the school and everyone was kind of recording it, and someone made it into, like, they cut it with the footage of that 90s sitcom that's super problematic. And Jin immediately thought it was like Travis, because Travis is, he plays into it being like, oh, it's something wrong. And you're just like, oh, Travis, don't be a douche. But it wasn't even Travis the one who posted the video. It was actually Greg. Even though Greg seemed like he was legit a cool dude, that's super not cool for him to do that. And it's like, I don't know whether it's like maybe Travis is the way he is because Greg is. It might be that trickle down thing of like, hey, this person's a douchebag and he used to rag on me, but now that I'm cool and we found someone else to rag on, like I'm not like at the like, you know, working your way down the totem pole of like, you know. So, like, why put up the good guy front if he was going to do something cringe like that? So, it's like, oh, Greg seemed like he was a good guy. I figured Travis is kind of a douchebag, but Greg's even worse because you're putting on the perception of, like, you're a good guy. When that makes you even worse when you're actually a dick bag and you pretend to be a good guy, so... Also, like, one of my favorite bits in the episode is the teacher when he was like, oh yeah, like, look, this is my ex-wife on the evolutionary picture. And one of the students was like, you can't, like, judge someone on their appearance. And he's like, you're absolutely right. I was like, I love how that backfired. And when the principal brought Jen out and the teacher was like, ooh, and she's looking at him and like, stop it. He's like, I know. I'm like, I love that. It, like, that backfired you in so many ways. Like, legitimately what that back and forth where he tried to make a wisecrack of, like, he's trying to be one of the cool, fun teachers. Cause it's more so like a, hey, I'm ragging on my ex-wife. She's my ex-wife for a reason. It's like, oh, come on, dude. That's not cool. You know, it's like one of your students calling you out for that. Like, oh, that was super cringe, bro. That was super cringe. I just thought that was so interesting. I also thought that scene with Jin and Travis when he, like, kind of jumped into him, I was like, oh, that must be in his head. Like, he wanted to have a cool moment, but it's like, nah, he got so heated in the moment. But you also saw the coach was super like, hey, yo, wow. When he saw Jin kick that ball, I was like, hey, might have to keep an eye on you. Isn't the same position Jin in, like, the middle fielder or whatever? I'm like, isn't that the same position that I thought it was Travis, but it might have actually been Greg. Is that what it is? Like, oh, you're pretty good. Like, everyone's talking about how good you are. Oh, you're coming from my position. Not like, once again, I got to put you in your place or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, in my head, I was thinking Travis and him were the same spots, but maybe it was actually him and Greg. But either way. So, all, like I said, the more grounded elements and just focusing on Jin. But then Wei Chin, him and his dad definitely have a complicated relation because he describes his dad as like a, was it like a burning fire or something, or a raging fire or something like that. And it's understandable, which I kept also, really quickly, when I was looking at his dad, I was like, why does the actor who plays his dad seem so familiar? And then I was like, it took me a second to be like, oh, that's Daniel Wu, because I remembered he was in the show, I just didn't remember what character he was. I was like, oh, that's super dope. Daniel Wu, one of the things I best know him for is the show Into the Badlands. If you like the show, I highly recommend you check out Into the Badlands. It was a show, sadly, that was canceled after 3 seasons. It has a conclusive enough ending, but it definitely has like it has a it's not fully resolved. Like, there's still more story to tell, but it's still enough that I think you can still enjoy the show. It's a really neat kind of post-apocalyptic martial arts show. It's not as fantastical. It doesn't have as many like fantastical elements as this show, but it does have a little bit of a supernatural element to it. Just a great martial arts show all around. But either way, putting all that aside, his dad kind of like, yeah, he came here for the staff because it's like, right, we got to be prepared because the staff is the only thing that works against the bull demon. So his dad came here to retrieve it. But Wei Chin is here because, hey, there's one of the fourth scrolls is here, which I think is an interesting parallel where Jin was like, yo, this particular manga, there's actually 7 of them, but we only have 3 of them here. Whereas, like, his dad is like, no, there's only 3 scrolls because I got them, but Wei Chin's like, I had to dream about it, and his dad's not listening to him. Seems like that's always been an issue. And so, and I thought that was also the thing, too, where, like, Wei Chin was like, my dad is kind of aggro the way he is, whereas Jin was like, yeah, my dad's very, like, subtle and reserved, maybe even too reserved, and I think that's kind of a little bit of, sadly, a thing of Jin kind of has a little bit as well. But, it turns into a whole fight between Wei Chin and his dad. And it's just like, the fact is, his dad is kind of fight. I mean, he didn't go all out, but it's still kind of like a, hey, yo, you kind of went pretty rough against your son, you know, until Michelle Yeoh's character stepped in to kind of like quell all that. It's like, hey, your son's on his own journey, but it's like, there's too much at stake. I don't know if it's just kind of like a, hey, I'm here to stop the bad guy, because it feels like it might be a thing of he's like, I'm so sure I'm the hero. I'm the one that knows what's best. Where it's like maybe somewhere along the journey, he lost a little bit of his way. Not saying he's the villain or anything, but maybe he strayed a little from his own path. And his son might be the one that really kind of end the struggle maybe once and for all. Whereas always continued to be this back and forth. Now, like, this could be like he's finding this fourth scroll and it could be the way to end all of this. Maybe that's kind of the thought process. Once again, we just don't know enough about Wei Chin's circumstances of this journey. Like I said, it seems like Michelle Yeoh's the one. Because that's why I was also bringing up earlier too about their world, where it's like, right, we have Jin and his dad being the monkey humans that they are, but there are other people in that world who are just regular humans. So I'm like, maybe it's just kind of like what that realm is, that it does seem like it has human enough people or entities, but maybe they just appear human and they're just other things. I have no idea. But also there's that toy that Wei Chin had given him that's from like the manga, and when you flip the head of you open the chest and there's a head and it's kind of like a monkey head like them, and we see the eyes glowing at the end, which is the same thing Wei Chin's dad was doing, like, because that's how he activates his powers, because he has like the 72 transformations. But I also love, like I said, just kind of like that was kind of also a really dope action sequence of just showing like, right, them like running on the sides and stuff with like the lockers and the walls and stuff. It's very, very like I said, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragons, Into the Badlands, Prince of Persia. I bring that up because like the wall running and stuff like that. Got Prince of Persia on the mind because of the Lost Crown and everything trailer. But either way, tensions and all that aside, I thought it was kind of a really nice start. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be like, once again, the mainly Jin episode. Like I said, only like the beginning and the ends kind of really touching on the more fantastical elements of the story. But I'm curious to ultimately see where everything ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.